time I see one, I have to get on one.
Well, when I discovered that there was a club out there of people who like roller coasters as much as I do, I just went crazy.
Joining First Drop was probably the best thing that's ever happened to me.
And who else would go 200 odd feet up in the air and thrown down the other side? Only nutters.
Was my 5-year-old daughter, and she said, "Gee, Dad, let's go and ride that great big roller coaster over there." You know, and we got over there and we got up and they said, "You can go and stand at number 8 on the loading platform." You know, and I said, no. I said, "You're not gonna let that little girl ride." You know, and the man just looked at me and he said, "Not only are we gonna let that little girl ride, but we're gonna let you ride." And up the hill we went, listening to that back ratchet going tick, tick, tick. It was like the end of your life. You were gonna be doomed. And then there was the ride. I don't remember anything about it. I think I shut my ears. I think I shut my eyes. Geez, I got back to the loading station. I said, never again. My daughter just jumped right up out of the roller coaster car and said, "Let's go again." And I said, "All right, let's go again."
In 1974, I wrote an article for the New York Times called "The Quest for the Ultimate Roller Coaster." I found there were a lot of other roller coaster nuts. I got about 10,000 letters. All these people saying I thought I was the only one. Sort of closet roller coaster riders. The Quest for the Ultimate Roller Coaster, my New York Times article, really changed things. It was another thing that was responsible for the roller coaster boom. I didn't know it at the time.
My wife doesn't particularly like roller coasters. And when we got married, we made our own vows, and she said that she would love, honor, cherish, and ride the occasional roller coaster. And she has honored that. She looks upon my passion with bemused tolerance.
The time was when I was a vicar in Kings Norton Parish in Birmingham, and Louise was the organist at that church. We were at Blackpool, it was the last weekend of the season, and at the end of the day, halfway up the lift hill of the Grand National, I asked her to marry me. That time it was the question, not the ride, that took her breath away, and a few seconds later she recovered herself and said yes, 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 and so we were thoroughly and wonderfully engaged and married about 6 months later.
I've always felt that men have needed to have an overriding passion, and I felt at least roller coasters was a hobby that I could join in with and identify with.
There are many ways in which an active coaster enthusiast might pursue his hobby. It's visiting amusement parks, especially as they open new rides. It's to encourage the preservation of interesting and classic and important roller coasters, and of course to ride them all over the world.
I'm not interested in how many gallons of paint or nuts and bolts or how long the track is or really who designed it. I know some of the major designers now, but really I just enjoy the experience of riding, and if I feel it's not worth it, then I'm letting it go off and do it alone and I find something else to do.
I love roller coasters and I love running the club, but it takes up a hell of a lot of time. I'm out all day doing my proper job, and then I come home and, you know, on average, I have about 30 letters to open, and there's normally about 20 plus messages on the answer machine.
Because I loved him very much, I thought, you know, you just accept these things because you want to be with someone, but it is so consuming, it takes over so much that it just becomes completely unbearable at times.
I couldn't just be a member of a roller coaster club because I want to be involved in it. I want to get the recognition that I was that person that did that I was the person that organised this, or producing this magazine that people are enjoying reading. I couldn't just be a normal member. It's not enough for me.
Every couple that I have married on a roller coaster is still married, as far as I know. I think it increases the chances because they're willing to play. They're willing to look at life with a little more excitement, and they're willing to play with it. And they're willing to look at a relationship as something that's not very dull and traditional and, you know, this is the way it has to be.
I think now, because we're married, it's like, oh, well, I've got her, and she's stuck with me, so I don't have to try so hard.
I don't think that, though. She just says that. I don't think that really.
Well, you were talking to a reporter on the phone, and the answer machine cut in. And I was listening back to some of the answer machine messages, I don't know, a couple of weeks later, and I actually heard him say to her, well, I do love roller coasters more than Tina.
I didn't say that.
No, but I heard you on the recorded message on the answer machine actually say it.
I know. Oh, well, I shouldn't have recorded
Can't get
it.
out of it.
One of the great features of this hobby is the day away and a day out, and of doing it with people who are family and friends together. It always is a very enjoyable way to spend a day, to get out, have a complete change, to come back home refreshed and ready again for the next 6 days of ministry. So there's certainly something therapeutic enjoying a whole day at an amusement park.
My grandfather put up the first roller coaster here in about 1904, and ever since we've had roller coasters, and we've just built new ones one after the other, and it's been almost our trademark actually in a way, and gradually we've become Europe's home of roller coasters. We've more wooden roller coasters here than any other park, I think almost in the world, except one park in America, and our total number of roller coasters, which is 11, is the biggest number for any amusement park anywhere in the world.
Roller coasters I've enjoyed all my life from about the age of 7. That was my first experience of a real roller coaster. I always was very fond of the Big Dipper, and that was quite the biggest thing of that time. When my father opened the Big Dipper, he charged $1 to ride. The local people were absolutely aghast. He said, $1 to ride a coaster? Why, you said, you're only on about a minute or so. And he said, yes, I know it was expensive, of course, but then it cost a lot of money to build. But he said, for that, I'm giving them a mahogany pay desk and a terrazzo entrance floor, and he did. I think one of the most exciting things we did was when my husband was alive, and he organised the Grand National, which is a racing coaster, and there aren't many of those today.
People really do find that exciting, because not only are they going on a normal roller coaster, but they're racing the train on a parallel track. So most part is divided in two, half in a red car, half in a green car, and to pick bet on and see who wins.
The only place we've ever seen when we've been to Blackpool is the Pleasure Beach. I've never been up the tower.
It's the best place to see.
Never seen the zoo. We've never been to the lakes. We've never been anywhere.
Yeah, I'm a roller coaster enthusiast. You've got 10 world-class rides in an amusement park. Why are you going to waste time going down the prom?
Yeah, but because I might like to walk along the prom.
Why you go down to Worthing or Bournemouth or something to do that?
A week on Monday, my wife and I are setting off on another 3-week trip across North America, and we set up the itinerary so that by the time we come home at the end of it, I shall be able to say quite truthfully that I've been on every wooden roller coaster in North America. In the 3 weeks that we've got planned, we expect to drive about 7,500 miles. And during that time, we'll be tuning in to all the local Christian radio stations, and we'll be taking with us on audio cassette the complete New Testament. That takes about 24 hours to listen through, and we'll probably hear it through 2 or 3 times as we drive around the great outdoors.
Who's looking forward to Cedar Point? Yeah! Who's looking forward to Raptor? Yeah! Magnum? Yes! Mean Streak? Yes! Freefall? Yes! Blue Streak? Yes! Iron Dragon.
So far we've been to Houston, Dallas, Oklahoma, Tulsa, Kansas City, St. Louis, Kentucky, and Cincinnati.
Yeah, I was heard about the last tour they came on, and I thought it sounded so stupid and so mad that I had to do it.
This trip particularly is marvellous, to be able to ride about 50 coasters, unlimited. The freedom is terrific.
We can actually have an hour exclusive on each of the rides, adding up to about 5 or 6 hours exclusive ride sessions, which is incredibly important to a real roller coaster enthusiast.
Well, the last one I didn't even get to come on, so it's nicer to be here.
And the park we're going to now is Americana, a small family-run park. The one ride we're going there for is the Screeching Eagle, which is a great wooden roller coaster, and it's a really good fun ride. I've been to Americana 4 times in the past. Every time it's been raining and the coaster's been flying. This is the first time I've been here when it's not been raining, and unfortunately the coaster's not running.
Are you ready?
Are we bouncing yet? We got their arms up. Arms up.
After 3. I haven't said 3 yet. 1, 2, 3. Mexican wave.
Mexican wave. Yay!
In Russia, they call roller coasters American mountains. And yet, actually, the roller coaster started in Russia in the 16th century. And they were these ice slides, these hills that were as high as the roller coasters now. And they were dangerous. The next story, supposedly, the French picked up on the Russian roller coaster and added wheels to these ice slides. Then the Americans grabbed it, and we haven't let go of it.
If you study European history or American history, you'll see the history of the country, including social history, economic history, political history, reflected in what the roller coaster is doing, how many there are, where they are, what kinds of them there are. So if you look at the latest contemporary coaster in the United States, which is now the inverted coaster, where you are suspended from an overhead track and the coaster does not only loops, but it can do corkscrews. And you look at the most primitive roller coaster in the United States, the Gravity Switchback Railway, which was built in 1884 at Coney Island, New York. I mean, just think about the technological development that is reflected between those 2 rides.
By the time you got to the roaring 20s, you had 2,000 roller coasters. Americans were fanatics, and in fact, you could say a roller coaster had the same personality as Charlie Chaplin and all the other heroes of that time period.
The Cyclone opened June 26, 1927. It is not the biggest, it is not the steepest, you know, it's just the best roller coaster.
Eyeglasses, car keys, wigs. They lose everything up here. Somebody lost a ring one day, we found it. They lose whatever you can't hold on to, you're lost. We find it, we give it back to you.
One man recovered his voice. He'd lost it while he was in the army. And he was visiting a friend in Brooklyn who said, we have to go ride the Cyclone. They took him for a ride on the Cyclone. Halfway through the ride, he said, I feel sick. And that was it, he was talking. So it has non-stop action, reaction, and people are thrilled, and that's how the coaster enthusiasts developed. A little over 20 years ago, the Cyclone was one of 3 roller coasters at Coney Island, 3 wooden coasters, of which the Tornado burned down subsequently. The Thunderbolt is a condemned ride. The Cyclone is the only one left. In fact, the Cyclone is the only wooden roller coaster in New York City.
Today, we have only 272 operating coasters, and there are many reasons as to why the United States has dropped from 2,000 to only 272 in all of North America this year. And it's all reflected in our cultural history, economic history, certainly international wars, the economic depression of the 30s, the suburban lifestyle in the United States led to the demise of many amusement parks and their roller coasters.
Slowly, as cities grew larger, they got nearer the parks. And finally, the park was in the city, and all these fires started, which are really arson. Many parks burned to the ground.
It happened so fast. By the time the fire department got here, the midway roofs with the tar and the old wood fueled the fire from underneath. Once that caught and the coaster caught, it just billowed probably 100-something feet in the air. The Wildcat people came here from far away just to give it a ride because of its reputation. It was a real aggressive ride, fast and short, and it really gave you a jolt for your money. There was someone who wouldn't listen to the operators, and they stood up. And he came around a corner and fell, which he was killed. That's a shame. But it is quite a ride.
We've come a long way since I started in this thing. We started out with one roller coaster, went 40 feet off the ground, and the top speed was about 30 miles an hour. And it was a pretty exciting coaster. It had sharp corners and things like that. We hadn't learned a great deal about turning and curving and what happens to the people when you do some of these things. They finally got up to 75 feet high, and about that time we started working on corkscrews that go upside down, and that was a little more exciting than most of the things that had happened before. In the case of the Desperado here, of course, we have a couple of buildings and a casino we had to deal with. And when I look at one of these rides, after it's all up and running and all this, I can hear people screaming and go stand around by the train, and they get off and how great it was. And it's what makes it all worthwhile. I think everyone in the world knows by now that I don't ride the things anymore. And I've ridden enough of them in my time to know what they do, and I've just given up going on these that are this big.
"42 years ago, I was reading an American magazine and saw a picture of a roller coaster. I was very impressed, and my father said, let's build one. And that was the first roller coaster in Japan." Nowadays, Japanese people ride roller coasters, throwing their arms up and screaming with excitement. But in the early days of coasters, they would grip the handrail, shut their eyes, and hold their heads down. So much so, there were injuries caused by people banging their heads. They were too shy to show their feelings. As for the White Canyon at Yomiuri Land, government regulation used to be very, very strict about building in wood. But recently, they have been relaxed. But building wooden roller coasters in Japan is much more expensive than building them in steel.
Wood roller coasters are basically kind of stuck what they have to do. They go up and down. Somebody had to teach you how to build a roller coaster. Somebody had to teach you how to take care of a roller coaster, because it wasn't written down anywhere. We had no manuals. We had no books to look at. We just knew what we were supposed to do every day. You need a bear on the table. Huh?
Yeah, and a dog on here. Wisconsin, I think, is a good coaster.
Now, he said the coaster did better than the go.
My father decided about 4 years ago that he was going to retire, and me and my brother and my husband looked at each other and said, we've grown up in this business, so this is all we know. So that's how Custom Coasters got started. Woodies have changed over, I'd say, the last 20 years. Now we go up to speeds to 50 to 60 miles an hour. The drops are very fast. We bank between 50 and 60-degree banks. We use a two-seated articulating that turns and it swivels more so than just a slow type train. And I think the new technology, Woody, will bring a new light in England and overseas. So this whole coaster sits like on a hillside, and everybody in the park can see.
Right, the cranes and these, we can't get one on Thursday.
Okay, so will we?
It's going to be Friday. The thing that's nice, that one down there, we thought we'd have to take that big bow off.
No, I think it's
have
fine.
A look. I think it's going to clear. I'm sure it's going to clear.
I think it'll be fine on that one.
And that'll be great. That first drop's come out really well, that tree. That canopy's going to grow. What's it doing there, 50 miles an hour? 55?
55. Once it comes off that drop, it shoots.
That'll be superb. So it's going to be completely tunneled in.
When I came out here, I thought it was a very nice place to put a wooden coaster, and the excitement of it is the natural feeling of West Wales, and the coaster kind of just blends in with the background.
It's fair to say that Custom wanted to build a coaster in Europe, and they wanted a coaster of a decent enough size to be able to bring prospective clients. We screwed them for a damn good deal, so for under £2 million, I think it's unbeatable value.
This one here has 11 crossovers. It's amazing. It intertwines in itself 11 times.
It is the biggest and best wooden roller coaster in Europe. It will be when it opens next year, and we've got to have a message like that in order to attract people to Oakwood, basically.
Amusement parks, to grow and be successful, to compete with the big leagues, have to have a good wooden roller coaster. We always wanted one, but we didn't think we had the capital to finance one. And I talked for years with people from the roller coaster industry about the feasibility of moving one, and they all advised me we couldn't do it. But we found this coaster in San Antonio. The park had been closed for 5 years, and there's this monster that nobody knew what to do with. And we thought we could pull this thing off, because you know, you can build a roller coaster new, spend a lot of money, and have a bummer.
The Phoenix truly symbolizes the name of that coaster, because had the Knoebel family not moved the roller coaster, and probably would have fallen apart by now. And they have turned a roller coaster that was almost forgotten into one that is now highly regarded by American coaster enthusiasts.
Today, the Phoenix is running great. In fact, it's running like a rape bait. I have a degree in engineering geophysics, but really I also have an honorary degree, I think, in crisis engineering, because that's what you got to have to run a place like this.
In the front seat, you get the visual rush, and that is exciting. And the front seat, also, you tend to get more pushed over the top of the hill, and that gives you more negative G sensation, feeling lighter than air, going whoops, up and out of the seat. But the back seat gives you the greater intensity, the oh my God, I'm being pulled down into the bowels of the earth by the devil himself sensation.
Part of the fun of the roller coaster is that you can't see all of it. So the surprise and the mystery of the ride is part of that which captivates you about the ride.
A good roller coaster is almost like a good movie. It has to have a narrative flow. It has to have a beginning, a middle, an end. A great roller coaster has a sense of drama about it. It's not just components.
The Beast in Cincinnati, Ohio at Kings Island is one of those coasters that can never be photographed completely because it goes out into the woods. It sprawls over this huge area. And part of the joy of that ride is it goes into different elements. It comes out of this brake run and goes into a tunnel, a rather long tunnel. It comes out of the tunnel and then you're racing through the woods. There's just no way to encapsulate that ride unless you ride it.
I know about building good coasters and not so good ones. You can thrill people with the first drop. But if you keep up the level of excitement all the way around, you'll terrify people so much, and they'll never want to ride your coaster again. When designing the roller coaster, after each dynamic session of the ride, you have to give people time to catch their breath so that they can enjoy all the excitement and all the thrills.
I like to think of roller coasters as a lot more than just a mechanical system. I still feel there's a lot of room for artistic expression, and that when the things are finished, they're beautiful.
My idea of landscape is a hill with a wooden roller coaster on the top with the huge drops and the twisting turns, and that's my idea of landscape. You can have your trees and your flowers and everything else that goes with it.
It's so sad, you know, 2 days and it'll be all over till the next time, but I'm going to enjoy myself.
You go home, you go back to work and you go back to reality, and we haven't lived reality at all. We've sort of lived a dream, basically.
Neil Harvey, 233, Michael, 231, John and John, 134.
Graham and Bob.
Graham and Bob, 247.
Michael Hart, 141.
That's Trevor Kersley, strip joint down the road, 139.
Lovely stuff.
One more.
How steep's the angular drop?
60 degrees.
How many tunnels?
3.
What colour's the track?
8.
Have fun, sit.
72 miles an hour. Magnetic sails to 100.
Have fun.
Push pineapple, right for tree. I'm going to do. Push pineapple, right for me. Do that again. Do the right.
You can never get enough of a roller coaster. If you ride it once, that's not enough. It has to be at least 5, 6, 10, 20, 100 times.
12th ride was great. The 13th ride was even better. The 14th ride where it threw you was great. The 15th ride was the beautiful girl that you got to ride. The 16th ride was the novice who had never ridden the ride, who shrieked his lungs out and pushed himself up against you because he's not used to riding a major roller coaster. It's suddenly the end of the evening. They're going to shut the ride down, and you're yelling at them on the loading platform, keep it open, give us one more ride. And the guy's looking at you, hey, old middle-aged guy, what do you mean one more ride? And you say, one more ride. Give us one more ride. That's all we want. And usually the ones riding with you want that one more ride.
So with the roller coasters can be rather hard work on the upper chest of ladies, on the upper body of ladies. So you need to be well supported.
Wear a tight jockstrap, just in case. Because if you've got it loose and you bang up and down a bit, it can be a little bit painful.
Whenever you ride with a man, you try to hold your position and you don't try to knock into them. Whenever you ride with a woman, it's a little different. You don't mind knocking into them. Maybe there's also a little more padding there and it's a little nicer.
I remember Hustler magazine saying roller coasters were better than sex.
No, I haven't found a roller coaster that can do that yet. I don't mean to say I'm not looking.
A lot really goes into their preparation and then the exhilaration and the excitement, and then you get back to the loading station and the thing's all over.
Give me the roller coaster, anytime.
Watch it, they're going red.
They did, but I was through on yellow.
Well, it should be easy to park this early.
Well, there's lots of parking meters here.
Yeah, but they're all used.
Travelling around the world to get on the coasters can be very expensive, particularly on a recent trip to Japan. When we worked out my park entry for one ride on a roller coaster, it actually cost me £40 to get on a ride called the Moonsault Scramble, because that was the only ride I did.
The 17th day of our tour around North American amusement parks, and here at Coney Island this reckons as being our 28th amusement park on the trip so far, where we've driven 6,528 miles to get here.
We've listened to the New Testament all the way through and we're actually on the second time round it now.
Let's go join the queue. It's a great feeling and great to be able to say that here on this Coney Island Cyclone, a wonderful ride with great history behind it, that we've achieved our ambition and been on every wooden roller coaster in North America. These are our Christian t-shirts that say that there's no roller coasters in hell, and it has a message on the bottom that probably isn't visible that says to believe in Jesus and be saved.
We've called on him to give us parking places when we've needed them in the parks.
It's kind of strange about the reason people get on coasters too, because we notice if there is some kind of an incident that occurs, two trains crash together for some reason and people get shaken up, close the thing down for a few days, and more people than ever seem to flock to the thing as if they're challenging whatever's going to happen.
But parks aren't going to tell you how safe the ride is. They like to circulate these stories that it's a dangerous ride, that you might get killed, you might not come back.
Roller coasters have a very low accident rate, but they tend to be like airplane accidents. When they happen, they tend to be spectacular.
The tragedy at Battersea Park almost a quarter of a century ago occurred on an old wooden roller coaster that was operated by my father. It was a combination of malfunctions which shouldn't have happened.
All the front was full up and the back had some in it, children and adults. I think there was a man who died. Most of the people at the back all got crushed up now because they come down backwards.
Well, we went round the corner and the first carriage had just reached the top, and then I think the cable broke, I don't know, and it all came backwards very quickly.
And what happened after that?
Well, there was a few people screaming, but then it was very quiet. I think everybody was just too shocked.
Rarely a day goes by when I don't think about Battersea. It all seemed to happen at the same time, where the industry changed quite dramatically in the 70s and 80s, and a whole host of new new rides, new technologies came about.
We started talking about another roller coaster without anything specific in mind probably 10 years ago. And I was riding a roller coaster in Illinois, and I realized that the technology of steel coasters had come far enough to make a truly exhilarating ride. And I had worked on the Thunderbolt quite a bit, and realized in the middle of the night that if you could take the track through the Thunderbolt over the first set of tracks, under the second set of tracks, that you would really create a unique coaster experience. So like an idiot, I'm driving out in the middle of the night going, I gotta see it, I gotta see it. And essentially came to this spot right here, looked down the hill, found out, my goodness, it can be done. And then the adrenaline was almost like a coaster ride itself.
The thing that we've seen over the last 10 years is what some writers have called a coaster arms race going on in the United States. And I and our company have been accused of fueling the thing. What happens when you build the world's biggest roller coaster is if the guy can say, I've got the biggest one in the world, people will come from around the world to look at it and get on it.
Well, I'd heard about the first roller coaster to be built that was over 200 foot high, and that was at a park called Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. So the year it opened, I went to see it, and I sat in the front seat early one morning and went down the first dip, and it was just an amazing experience. It was almost like St. Paul on the road to Damascus. I saw a vision, and I said, we must have one at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. So I rang up the ride manufacturers in Utah and said to them, I want a ride like this one, but bigger.
It's everybody's desire that comes to this town is to see the big one. It's worldwide known. We spent thousands and thousands of hours here. We watched piece by piece come. We had the car engine running, we had the flask of tea, and it was a big flask. And we enjoyed every minute of it. This isn't a 5-minute wonder. It's for all time, isn't it? It's for all time. And I'm privileged. When I die, I've been privileged to see one. Well, to me, it's one of the wonders of the world. It is a wonder. To me, it's...
Because we've been watching.
Well, I'm proud now.
Every little bit.
I'm proud to have been able to watch it, and I'm proud to have been able to help the workmen.
Whenever there is a scent of a new ride, the enthusiasts get probably overexcited and almost go to the lengths of breaking the law to try and gather enough information. When I first heard about the claims of the big one for height dimension. They were making claims for a 235 feet high lift hill. At first I thought, well, this is fantastic, this is going to be the largest ride in the world. I immediately started to think that, well, what is the height of this lift hill then? So I decided to make a trip to Blackpool to find out the correct height. I climbed up the lift hill to the top and dropped a plumb line off the side and measured it 4 or 5 times to ensure accuracy, which turned out to be 214 feet, which is obviously a difference between the 235 foot claimed. And I then realised that this is the difference is the height of the pleasure beach above sea level.
That drop there, has it been done before? I don't think it has. Not as steep as that. It literally leaves a bloody track. It leaves a track as it's coming down. It's in air, suspended in air. It must be, because the velocity, the air must lift it off the track and everything. There must be a little gap between all the wheels. There's got to be. You can never have everything putting up. So it must float. It must float.
There is a ride at Kennywood, which is the second mega coaster to be built. Now there, they have a very steep drop that goes down a cliff, but the ride and the pull-up of the ride aren't very high at all. But of course, as it's going down a cliff, they claim that their first dip is slightly longer than ours, but it starts from a very low height. Ours is just the highest roller coaster, and at the moment we think the fastest roller coaster in the world.
This will always be the fastest roller coaster in the world because we're not starting at 0 miles an hour or kilometers an hour when we come over the hill. We are going about 18 miles an hour, so that's how we hit over 80 miles an hour at the bottom. So for all those roller coaster builders out there, you're going to have to go about 260 feet in the air to beat us.
So yes, there's envy. And there's one-upmanship amongst the curious breed of people who run amusement parks. But I think that the main people who benefit, of course, are the public, because they end up getting bigger and better rides.
It must be a wonderful experience. I'd love to have a do, but common sense prevails with me.
I look at it with a lot of longings, especially when I look at this big dip, and I really would have enjoyed that, I know, very much.
The ultimate roller coaster is always just around the next bend. The ultimate roller coaster is just going to be built next year. I can't believe what they've done with roller coasters already.
One character somewhere through the years said the ultimate roller coaster is one where everybody comes back to the station dead. That's a little bit too wild to suit me and most people, I think.
I'm not sure I would want my dream roller coaster to be built. If it were built, then I would want another dream.
Every day